Welcome back, my dear students. So in this lecture, we're going to take a look at another really cool module, built-in module, that has to do with the file system, all right? So the file system of our server, has to do with files, right? We manage files, we create directories, we create files, we do rename, we do a lot of stuff, right? With files. So let's play around with some files in Node and let's just have some fun, all right? So you guys ready? Okay, let's do it. So let's create a new file here, and I want you to write the code with me because this is just gonna help you guys. It's just going to help you get this knowledge, okay? So pause the video, write down when you finish, when you see me writing the stuff down, even if you already know it, even if it's simple, just pause it and write it, okay? So let's, append this file to all the lectures that we are going to creating now. We're just going to call reading here. Call this reading file hyphen reading.js. Okay. And the first thing that I want to do and I want to show you is how to list everything that you have in the directory. So let's start reading some data. So I'm going to constant and I'm going to call this fs because we are going to be requiring the FS. And this is a good practice to do this. Now, you might be tempted, and I do this all the time. Not all the time, but yeah, very commonly. I name this the same as the module that I'm pulling out. Okay, so when I'm importing a module, when I'm requiring a module, I usually name the variable the same, give the same name to it. Now, I might change this sometimes. I might just do something like that or whatever. It's just to make it so you guys understand what we are doing at the moment, okay? But just know that it's very common to see this pattern here, and it's very good practice to do that, okay? But anyway, so I'm gonna, let's use the file system and let's just read. And as you can see, when I'm doing this here, my IDE is already auto completing some stuff for me, and we have a whole bunch of things that we can do with files. Okay, now you might see this sync, read dir sync. This is because we have two ways of reading files, or in this case reading, because that's what we're doing. Either we read them asynchronously or synchronously. So when we're doing synchronous stuff, it means that we have to wait for it to finish to do other stuff. Remember that Node is by default asynchronously, and that's what we're going to be doing, okay? But it gives us options to do that. And when you want to use this option here that you see here, the sync option, when you want to do that, it's good to do it when you're first starting your applications, when you're reading configuration files, environment files that you need your application to use before anything else. So that's when you want to do stuff synchronously, when you don't want other stuff to interfere with your execution, okay, with your code. But when we're doing stuff that requires us to use other things, when you don't want interruption, and you want to just keep going with your application, keep executing stuff, asynchronous is the way, okay? So I'm just gonna use the this function here, and we're gonna be reading that directory, the content that we have here. So we're gonna get the path to what we want to read, and let's just read the current directory that we're on there, okay? And let's we have a way to pass in other options here, but we're not going to do that. We are going to use an arrow function to give a callback, because the callback is what's going to bring our data back in. Now we have two arguments here that it takes. Either it brings the error or it brings the content. And we can say if error return, and you're gonna see this pattern a lot as well, like that. That will stop everything at that time. And you can just even throw in an arrow here as well, something like that. Let me see, like that, and everything will crash, and you get that error as well. I like to use return, just not to make it too ugly, right? Let's just console that there, and let's see what we get. Oops, that's not it. That's not the name of it. Is file reading. There we go. And as you can see, we get an array with all the files and even our directories. Okay, let's put that there just to make it more obvious. So this dot symbolizes that we want to read everything in this directory here. Now we get this dot idea. This is for Mac operating system. This is just a file that's created every time we create something in our computer, especially in folders. We get this dot idea file. Don't worry too much about that, okay? And this is a system file. In Windows, of course, you're not going to have that. You're going to have something else. You might not even have anything. So you see that, and you see the directories don't have an extension, just to keep that in mind. Okay, so we are able to read all the content of this directory. What about files? Can we read files? And I'm glad that you asked that question. We can. Okay, so let's do that as well. Let's go ahead and use the file system to read files. Let's read, what do we have here? Let's read this. Let's just write some lorem ipsum here. Okay, this is some gibberish text. Okay, I'm just gonna break it down a little bit. That way you guys can, it's just more, it's just better. Okay, there we go. Just organizing my code a little bit. Okay, so the function that we can use for this one is read file. Now, also keep in mind that we can do this synchronously right here, but we're not going to do that. Very similar to the read directory one, but in this one here, we are going to pass a function. Okay, so I want to read the file, and it's gonna be in this directory, and the file is called global. Actually, let's just name the file here, global.html. Okay, the second argument here will be the option that we are gonna be passing, and I want this to be a text file. Okay, that's what we want. So it's gonna be UTF, and that's the encoding that we're passing, and basically is going to read anything that has the UTF encoding. You can read more about the UTF in Google or any other search engines. Basically the encoding of text files and a whole bunch of characters that we can read. And this callback function is the third parameter, and it has the error or the content, of course, of that file. And we can do the same thing we did here. Okay, let's go ahead and do that now. And now you can see that we get the array, and we also get the content of that file, the whole content. Okay, which is pretty cool stuff. That's how you do that. All right, so guys, super simple to do, and now you know how to read files. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if you don't pass an encoding here, if you try to do this like this and you execute this, you're gonna see the whole bunch of binary code. Okay, and that's just the buffer class in Node. So every time you have been giving an option to pass in one of these functions, for example, in this case, a encoding, and you don't pass it, you're gonna see always a buffer returning with some of the data. This is the data in binary format of that file. Okay, so if you were executing something else and the data comes in numbers like this and some of these letters, know that it is binary. It's the data, but it comes in binary. Remember that when you are doing Node is actually using C++ to do these, executions, to do these features, right? To read files and deal with databases and things like that. And C++ is very close. It's not entirely very close to machine code, but it's almost there. It's there. It's dealing with your system. So you're gonna see strange stuff like this. Don't get scared. Everything is right. It's just that you need to pass. You need to let know a little bit more information. Okay. In this case, we need to let it know what kind of data we want back. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this was clear to you and easy. And keep it up. You're doing great. Just a couple more lectures, and we are done with this section. See you in the next one. Take care.